not making sense to him in physics and biology and so on, which would put me to sleep in class, suddenly turned magical when I saw them performed on the stage, when I heard the words spoken rather than reading them and being able to comprehend what does this word mean, what does that word mean. Here we had actors speaking the words with conviction and understanding, and that is where I got hooked onto Shakespeare. Both my brothers, who were heroes enough as it was, both won Best Actor prizes in school. One of them is actually pretty good, and he gave me my first lessons in acting, and I got cast in nothing. Forget about winning a prize for acting. It was always the best students who got the roles. So deeply inspired by Mr. Geoffrey Kendall, who was the leader of the troupe Shakespeareana, I got a group of friends together, and the five of us, yes, one was playing Portia, I was playing Shylock, of course, and two others were playing Bassanio and Antonio. We just decided to do a few scenes from The Merchant of Venice. And I'd never been on the stage before, but I told everyone, okay, I know exactly what we should do. And so we went ahead and did it. We invited the school, and I have the first few seconds when the curtain opened and the lights shone into my eyes and I was blinded. I had never faced such bright lights. I had no idea how bright the lights on the stage are. I was 13. And I have never in my life felt such utter terror for a few seconds. And then I spoke the first few lines of the scene, which was to bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, will feed my revenge. And the hall went silent. And then I had a couple of lines later, they laughed. And that was really the moment that I can describe as the only turning point in my life, because I suddenly relished, tasted acceptance. I was the kind of kid who nobody gave the time of day to. The teachers didn't even know my name a lot of the time. And I myself was convinced I was something of a dullard. And I had come to terms with it. Until this happened. I felt I've come home. I felt this is where I belong. And not for a moment have I looked back since then. My performance, of course, was a close imitation of Mr. Kendall. After that, I did several plays in school. I played King Lear when I was 15 years old. I'm getting ready to play it again on stage now. It may just be my final act. And then I went to college in Aligarh University and was fortunate enough to meet two teachers who encouraged me and who persuaded me that what I was planning with my life was not wrong. These two introduced me to writers I would have never otherwise read, people I hadn't heard of. They introduced me to Samuel Beckett, to Eugene Ionesco, to Luigi Pirandello, to Harold Pinter, and others, a lot of which I couldn't understand at that time. I acted in a production of The Chairs in Aligarh University without understanding a word of what that play was trying to say. But at least I was introduced to it, so when I encountered it again at a much later stage, it made a great deal of sense. And then I went to the drama school thinking I was the cat's whiskers, because in Aligarh I was the actor. And I had seen a couple of the plays of the drama school before I went there. And I was quite astounded by the quality of the work that was produced in the drama school at that time. And I was told that there is such a place where you actually get paid a scholarship, so you don't have to ask your parents for anything. It was a great relief, because my father would not hear of this nonsense. And he said, 3 years to learn acting? What is there to learn acting? You're acting all the time when you're lying to me. Why do you have to learn it? Well, I couldn't explain to him. It was at the drama school that I gained the experience that later, when I decided to analyze my work and to try and understand that what does an actor do when he acts? It's a tough question for any actor to answer. A carpenter can tell you what he does. A potter can tell you what he does. A painter can tell you what he does. So can a dancer, so can a sculptor. But an actor cannot define what it is he does when he acts. And I set about trying to find out about that. And then I went to the Film Institute in Pune in the hope that I'd get work in movies, because with no other ambition. Because those days the Film Institute in Pune was a star-producing factory. And I thought if I go there, at least I'll get the role of the policeman who comes in at the end and says, "Koi apni jagah se nahi hilega." If the worst comes to the worst, I'll even do those. Because I've got to eat. And when I've decided to go to the Film Institute, my father hit the ceiling. Because he said, "What's wrong with you? 5 years you want to learn about this bloody acting? You could have become a doctor in 5 years." So I said, "Yeah, but I didn't want to become a doctor. I don't want to read those fat books. I don't want to become a lawyer, and I don't want to put on a tie and go to the office every day like you do." So I went there supported by my brothers at the Film Institute. And NSD people get a little unhappy when I say this, is where my understanding of the craft really began. Firstly, because of the films that I saw there. I had no idea that films are made in Korea, in Japan, in Czechoslovakia, what was then Czechoslovakia, in Bulgaria. I knew that I knew Kurosawa and I knew Bergman. Those are the only two names I knew, but I had no idea of the extent of work done in French cinema, in Italian cinema, in German cinema, Canadian cinema. And it just opened my mind, and I realized that here was an opportunity for me to finally try and understand what I wanted to understand. When I watched actors in Bergman's movies, or in Fellini's movies, or in De Sica's movies, or Jean Cot's movies, or the Polish movies of Andrzej Wajda, I used to wonder, how do they do this? How can you look so real? How can you look so true when what you're doing is in fact artifice, and it is practiced, and it is it's all written out for you? How does an actor introduce this kind of truth into his performances? I could explain how Laurence Olivier does what he does, or what Toshiro Mifune does, how he does that. It's all tremendous physical effort and an acute understanding of one's own strengths and weaknesses. But I could not understand for the life of me how these Polish and Czech and Bulgarian actors managed to bring this level of authenticity to their work. Hindi movies I was never terribly fond of, and they always appeared very corny to me, and they still do. I wasn't terribly impressed by any of the actors in them, apart from a couple who were unknown at the moment, and someone like Balraj Sahni, whose greatness was not really utilized by the film industry. So I was not bothered about learning that kind of stuff. Though I had classmates who were, and they spent a great deal of time, gyrating to Hindi film songs. I always felt kind of foolish doing that, and I never thought I'd have to do it. When I had to do it later, I proved to be a disaster, but that's another story. The classes themselves were not geared toward performing, toward presenting. At the drama school, we were taught how to stand on the stage, how to walk on the stage, how to use our costume, how to catch the light in our eyes, how to be audible, how to speak clearly, etc. But we were never taught the nuts and bolts of the job. This is where I began to learn the nuts and bolts of the job. It would take too long and it would be too complicated to explain what exactly happened in the classroom, but it was definitely geared more toward cinema acting, though I don't believe that there is such a huge difference between cinema acting and theatre acting. Cinema people have a term theatrical, and theatre people have a term filmy. It means the same thing. It means bad acting, quite simply. But for some reason there's this, even though cinema was, India at least, cinema was born out of the theatre. It assimilated so much of the theatre that it still hasn't been able to get rid of the old influence of the old Parsi theatre, where the action would stop and there would be a song for no reason at all. Good always triumphed, evil always was defeated, etc., etc. Actors were often asked to repeat a scene, ek baar phir se. So a death scene, an actor would get up from dead and get up and enact it another time for the benefit of the audience. That's a certain kind of theatre. There is the kabuki as well, there is the kathakali as well. So this concept of overacting and underacting flies out of the window when you watch any of these performances, because they are hair-raisingly good. They are extremely broad but extremely nuanced at the same time. But what was taught to us was conviction in the action you're performing. Even if it's a thing like coming in through a door, into a room, throw the word exit and entry out of your vocabulary. I don't want anybody to make an entry, which is something I was used to doing. When you're exiting, you're entering somewhere else. And when you're entering, you're exiting from somewhere else. So that was the kind of thing which really set me thinking. And I realized that this is the kind of performer I want to be. I can't be a song and dance man, much as I would have loved to, but I didn't prepare myself for it. I wouldn't call it a loss. So any of you who dream of being matinee idols, and I'm sure there are many, if you want to be that, prepare yourself for it. Don't think it'll come easy. You know, if I pray to God, I'll become a star. No, God has too many other things to do. He's got a lot of jobs on his hands. Yeah, he's got to look after a lot of troublesome people on this earth. He can't be bothered about your performance. So, don't waste your time paying obeisance to the stage. Al-Qazi Sahab, who was our director then, used to tell us that this does not show your respect for the stage. Your respect for the stage shows in the number of drops of sweat that fall from your brow onto the planks. But these religious rituals have gotten attached to the theatre for many reasons, I'm sure you all know, because of the history of theatre and so on. But I resolved to be this kind of actor, and as it took me a long time to understand how one even gets close to this. And I'm still grappling with that. Along the way, I have also learned that realistic acting is not the only kind of acting that is desirable, and at times it obstructs, and at times it is not useful, and at times it is not appropriate. So one did try and expand. Unfortunately, I was not trained in body expressiveness, but I have watched people perform and tried to assimilate what I can from their performances. The realization that I did come to was after I checked for the meaning of the word act in the dictionary. How many of you have done that? No one. I haven't yet met an actor who's checked the meaning of the word act in the dictionary. It means to do. It doesn't mean to pretend. It doesn't mean to put on a wonderful costume and stride around the stage speaking great dialogue. It means to do. I finally began to understand the nature of this work, and which to my mind applies equally on the stage as well. The only way to, as I learned very early in life, the only way to avoid anxiety, which is something that all actors feel, is to concentrate on what you have to do. There is no other way, and anxiety is no use at all. I've met plenty of actors who claim as if it's a vindication that I get butterflies in my stomach. I start sweating. I have to go to the bathroom 6 times. Why are you acting in that case? Give it up. If it makes you feel so miserable, why should you feel like that? I mean, this is something I've fought with my parents for. I've left my home for. I've struggled for. I've stayed hungry for. What the hell should I feel nervous about doing it? Nervousness is the direct result of ill-preparedness. That's quite simply the answer. And that is what I try to do when I perform. I don't believe in this business of becoming the character. Believe me, that's all nonsense. You cannot become the character. You should not become the character. You'll be of no use to God, man, or beast if you become Macbeth. If you become Othello, you'll need a new Desdemona to kill every night. So, this is something propagated by several American actors, that we've gone this far and I transformed into the person. I don't buy that for a second. You went this far because it was the requirement of what your performance was. You sat in a wheelchair for 2 years because that is what was required for you to do. You couldn't have prepared for it any other way. You trained as a boxer for 2 years because that's what you jolly well should have done. You didn't do anyone a favor. There has to be a distinction between the actor and the character. The actor need not suffer with the character. That's what I have come to believe. The actor must be able to simulate spontaneity. There is no such thing as spontaneous acting. I've met several actors who detest rehearsal, who say, my performance becomes stale. Well, it becomes stale because you haven't cared for it. In the same reason as food becomes stale. And if you're going to do your performance like a drill every night, left, right, left turn, right turn, if you're going to do that every night, it will become stale, it will become boring. So I've tried to find ways to keep performances fresh. And the only way that I've found is through thorough rehearsal. There's no magic to it. The magic occurs only when you have shed enough sweat. And that happens when you least expect it. So I spend a great deal of time on any theatre production that I do. I make the actors read, first of all. I don't get them on the floor. I don't insist that they learn their lines quickly. I don't get a set designer in to design a set for me. All this evolves as our understanding of the play grows, because anytime I choose a play to do, It's not because I claim to understand it. I do it because it stimulates me to read it, and I feel it'll make a stimulating experience for the viewer. The understanding occurs while you're in the process. The idea of how this should be, who should be where, and how this presentation should look. The set also evolves in that manner. I believe the audience should not look at the set until the actors are on it. I've seen instances of the audience applauding on an empty stage when a magnificent set is displayed on the stage. I don't like that kind of stuff. What are you applauding? Architecture? It's not supposed. It includes architecture, but it's not an architectural marvel that the set is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a utilitarian place, and I detest superfluous things on the stage. Nothing that is not used should be on the stage. That's what I believe. There should be nothing decorative and there should be nothing overtly expressive.